Welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden. And when we come back in mere moments, what are these MPs up to when they take another week away from the House?
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Yeah, Sasha says, ring that bell. She always did. Sorely miss that cat. Please ring the bell, like the station, give us the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, resubscribe if you have to or need to. Yes, you do get unsubscribed. And a couple of weeks back, I begged, I pleaded, I said, let's get a membership drive, let's get a subscription drive going here. And you came through in spades. Yes, you did. And I said, I think in a fit of optimism, I said, let's get 25,000 subscribers by May the 15th. Well, that's tomorrow, and believe it or not, it's achievable. We're not that far away from 25,000. And just a couple of weeks ago, probably even less, maybe like 10 days ago, I was saying, we were being suppressed. Our numbers are being suppressed. YouTube is unsubscribing people at a rate that's faster than they're subscribing. And we reversed that. Thank you. I thank you for your help and your support. It is appreciated. And so I want you to know that we're going to move ahead. And when we hit that plateau, the next plateau, not the last one, the next plateau, 25,000, it's going to mean that much more in terms of our numbers and getting this message out to more people. And we're going to keep moving upwards and onwards. And I just wanted to go through a couple of polls and things before I get into our man of the hour, which is none other than the Environment and Climate Change Minister, Steven Guilbeault, who is a favorite menace, if you will, of this station. I think he's probably the most dangerous member of the cabinet, next, of course, to Justin Trudeau. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but I probably don't need to, because I'm sure a lot of you out there, a lot of our viewers share that feeling and perhaps that knowledge. This is a guy who's a convicted felon in the past, a Greenpeace activist demonstrator who's been let loose in cabinet, and he's going nuts. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. But I just wanted to go through some of these polls we had recently. And once again, this is tremendous. Look at this. May the 9th, 3,100 of you participated. 98% say Canada is wasting money in Ukraine. Couldn't agree more. And if you haven't had a chance to watch my broadcast about where the money is going in Ukraine, how we're wasting that money, have a look at it. In the world of journalism, there's certain stories that are called evergreen. We always said that about a story, that you didn't have to run this week, didn't have to be in by 5 o'clock today, didn't have to be in by the end of the week. But it's a story that continues to live on in interest because it's timeless to a degree, obviously. Maybe not 6 months from now, but it's got a rather long shelf life, which most journalism does not. You've got to get it up, and it's got to be read, and so largely sometimes forgotten within a week. This is a study we did a week ago now on exactly where the money's going. Exactly where the money's going. Not a little bit, not a guess, but exactly where the money's going. And just for instance, how much money do you think we're spending on demining projects? Tens of millions of dollars. And there's not just one, of course. They're overlapping, interlocking, demining projects that actually have something to do with the gender equity issues that Trudeau is pushing. Now, how can you mix gender equity with demining? I don't know. The project doesn't stipulate, but I'm sure they'll find a way. Another poll we did recently: should hard drugs be illegal across Canada? 3,900 of you participated. 96% of you said they should be illegal. Now, might that have something to do with what's been happening in the House of Commons over the last couple of weeks with the Trudeau government dragging its heels literally for a week and a half over British Columbia's request to recriminalize the public use of hard drugs. Might it have something to do with the pathetic day in, day out responses from Trudeau and his cohorts, including his addiction minister, who was just an abomination in her responses, and Chrystia Freeland was up frequently as well, saying, I'm shocked that the opposition would use this for political ends. Yeah, right. I think the Liberals have used drugs for a political end for a long time now. And all of this talk about the safe supply of drugs that the government supplies versus that unsafe supply on the street is nonsense, because when you're talking about hard drugs like heroin and opioids, there is no safe supply. It's all poisonous. It's all potentially lethal. Put that crap in your veins and you got a good chance of dying. It's not like taking a shot or it's not like marijuana. This stuff can kill you instantly. Doesn't take much experimentation. So stop trying to say there's a safe supply or there's such a thing as a safe injection site. What the hell is that? Yeah, I might call it a supervised injection site because, yes, there are nurses on site to watch you shoot up. But it's nothing safe about this. Sorry, folks. And sorry for those proponents of harm reduction that think this is actually reducing deaths. Addicts can go into a supervised injection site on Wednesday. They can shoot up alone on Thursday, and they're gone of an overdose. So your supervised injection site doesn't achieve anything except the perpetuation of addiction and the illusion that it's saving lives. The illusion that it's somehow reducing harm to addicts, and it's not. So thank you for participating in this poll. You're damn right. We need to say hard drugs are illegal, especially in public. We don't want addicts shooting up in parks, in hospitals, on buses, on subways. No, that's not what we want. We don't want children exposed to this in the playgrounds. No, we don't. For that matter, none of us should have to be exposed to this. And a little bit of sales here. We want you to have a look at our store again, and I've got the shirt right here, and I'll show it to you in a sec. But here's some of the stickers we have. The example of Trudeauing, and here's the guy we're going to be talking about, King Guilbeault. He's the man. And if that doesn't grab you, we've got the T-shirts. The resolve to resist T-shirts, hoodies. Think while it's still legal. We've got Big Red's truck. Yeah, we've got a lot. The store has been kind of quiet lately. So go ahead, make our day. Go in the store, shop, fill your cart, get some T-shirts, hoodies, and we've got the mugs. And as I said, we've got the button. And we even got the magnet here. Great on your fridge or filing cabinet. Tell everybody that you are standing on guard with me to protect Canada from Trudeau's Liberals and his Trudeau policies. Now, let's get to the guts of the show here. Steven Guilbeault. Disco Steven Guilbeault. Yes, there's rumors that he was an extra in the movie Saturday Night Live. And I don't know. What do you make of that? Could he have been the extra, the underage kid in the bar when John Travolta starts breaking into the disco dance? Could be. I don't know. But certainly, when you see Disco Guilbeault running around in his pink jackets, looking like he's ready to go to the disco as soon as that question period's over, as soon as that news conference is over, he's ready to party, man. He's going to go off to the disco. But here he is in a more serious moment here, and I thought that you might find this interesting because it's laughable. It's laughable. Here he is, the huckster, the heat pump huckster. And listen to how he starts off his dissertation about why this is going to be life-changing because the government's going to help you buy a heat pump.
There are a couple of dominant issues that are keeping Canadians awake at night. One is the cost of living, whether that means finding and affording a place to live or putting food on the table. Another one is climate change.
I just stop him there for a minute. He's right about the first one. Canadians are concerned about the cost of living, largely because of Guilbeault and his idiotic climate change policies that are pushing the price of everything up, including the carbon tax, which pushes everything up in price, not just the gasoline at the pump, not just your home heating fuel, but it has an accelerated effect on all purchasing, all goods and services, because things have to be moved by vehicles and by transportation that requires fuel. So it requires more expensive fuel to move the products. The products immediately increase in price. It's simple economics, but simple economics is something that Guilbeault or Justin Trudeau never really excelled in. Let's listen to more of the words of wisdom from King Guilbeault.
The costly real-time impacts we are starting to see too frequently in our lives: wildfires, floods, extreme heat. My heart goes out to the people of Fort Nelson and other Canadians who are currently being evacuated because of forest fires.
Nothing to do with climate change. Immediately, he sees a forest fire or a flood or a hurricane or a gale force wind. It's got to be climate change. Why? Oh, the science says so. No, the science doesn't say so. It is nothing but nonsense. It's nothing but gibberish. It's nothing but politics. The science will say whatever the politicians want it to say if it's funded by the government or funded by an agency that has a vested interest in promoting climate change hysteria. I'm not saying climate change doesn't exist. I'm not saying we shouldn't be at all concerned about climate change, but it's not an existential threat. I don't go to sleep worrying about it. And I don't think it's all anthropocentric. I do believe climate change has occurred throughout the last thousands, tens of thousands of years, and it will continue to occur whether or not Steven Guilbeault is the Minister of Environment or not, and whether or not we continue to use fossil fuels or not, because carbon is not a pollution.
Energy affordability is one place where these two big issues meet and where we can start to find solutions. That is why we're here today. I'm excited to announce that the Government of Canada is investing up to $103 million from the Canada Low Carbon Economy Fund and the Oil to Heat Pump Affordability Program to reduce energy costs and support climate action right here in British Columbia. The funding will be used to provide grants so residents can get off expensive oil and gas price roller coaster and switch to high-efficiency electric heat pumps. It will also help fund home upgrades, such as energy-efficient windows and doors. We're talking here about saving energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and cutting costs for British Columbian homeowners and tenants. Installing a heat pump can provide heat for your home in the winter and cool air in the summer. Once you make the switch to get off oil and gas, you can save hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars a year on home energy bills.
Yeah, maybe so. If you want to freeze in the winter and have heat exhaustion in the summer, because heat pumps do not work very well in Canadian winters. You go beneath minus 12 degrees Celsius and they aren't functioning at very good levels. In other words, they're not high efficiency at Canadian winters, during Canadian winters. So this is all nonsense. So heat pump huckster, Steven Guilbeault out there selling the heat pumps. I don't care if the government is going to subsidize 100% of your heat pump, and they're not. But even if they are, you've got a worthless product for Canadian winters. It would be like giving you an electric car that's not going to work because the battery is going to be worn out in a year and you won't be able to get a replacement. So you've got a very expensive vehicle parked permanently in your front driveway or in your garage. Not going to do you much good, even if you got it for a subsidized price, because it's no good to you now. just like a heat pump is no good to you during the winter months in most of Canada. Now, he said, make this announcement from Victoria. Now, I grew up in Vancouver Island, Comox, British Columbia, and the winters were very mild there, as they are in Victoria. So that might be one of the few places in Canada where a heat pump would work. Or if they're pretty stupid in this federal government cabinet. They're very dense about what people really care about, but they can be very cunning when it comes to making announcements. Go to Victoria, where the winters are mild, and it's probably one of the few places in Canada. It's the only region in Canada, the west coast, the southern west coast of BC, where the weather is temperate enough where heat pumps work. So Guilbeault can make these claims in Victoria, but probably can't make them in Kelowna, can't make them in Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, or Halifax. But it's passable in Victoria. So there he goes, selling his heat pumps. He also did the ad, of course, selling electric cars. Like that's the panacea. Even he admitted, well, that's not really the panacea. What we really want to do, Guilbeault says, is stop making roads so people can't drive anywhere, so they won't need cars at all. So we'll all live in our 15-minute globalist cities. We won't have to travel anywhere. We can walk or take the bike. We won't have to take the car and leave the 15-minute city to visit family or friends somewhere else. No, that's no longer an option, folks. That creates too many greenhouse gas emissions. But Guilbeault can still fly around the world in his jet, in his government jet, along with Justin Trudeau. They can jack up all they want in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. They can enlarge their carbon footprint to a massive size. And that's okay because they're out there teaching the rest of us how we have to live. And they get special rights for doing that. So, friends, that's what the MPs are up to this week. That's what the cabinet ministers are up to this week. What the hell do they need another week off for? They just had 2 weeks off, and they get Victoria Day off on Monday. So maybe they should have taken next week off if they needed another week away. We need to address a number of issues here in Canada before the House recesses for the summer on June 21st. It's my birthday, by the way. That's I always remember. The House is always recessing in that third week of June. Now, the only good thing about them taking all this time off is that they might not have adequate time to pass, yeah, you know what I'm going to say, the Online Harms Act, which might not even get the second reading. Well, they won't be able to pass it, but it might not even get the second reading before the summer, before the parliamentary recess. That would be good because there's still a lot of people out there who think this is either a joke, not that serious, or something we can just get rid of in the future. Not always an easy thing to do because once you pass something into law, it becomes a vested interest for a lot of people who will fight it. And it suddenly becomes not just legislation, but a human right. As soon as that legislation becomes law, it becomes for so many people, that's my right. And the government certainly thinks it's going to be their right to censor you, put you in jail for hate speech, so-called hate speech, and to put you in house arrest for thought crimes. That's going to be the government's perceived right. So we need to make sure this bill is never passed, never sees the light of day. And have any of you thought about this? There's going to be huge pushback in any conservative government of the future from this crazy Senate we now have. Very few conservative senators left who are going to vote for Poilievre's legislation in a conservative government. Instead, there's a lot of wacko woke senators belonging to these factions that all add up to woke politics, and we're going to support the Liberal government or maybe even the NDP, but we're not going to support conservative legislation, so conservative policy. So it's going to be perhaps a constitutional crisis because the Senate is not supposed to stand in the way of the House of Commons. It's not supposed to overrule and block legislation approved by the elected members of the House of Commons. They came to this loggerhead in Great Britain just before the First World War, when the House of Commons passed legislation granting the vote to enormous amounts of Britons who had never had it before because they were disenfranchised in terms of property. They were not seen as being eligible for voting because they weren't sufficiently rich enough or in the right class. The House of Lords tried to block that legislation, and the House of Commons had to overrule that. The Prime Minister had to overrule that and say the House of Lords cannot stop the progress initiated in the House of Commons. They cannot stop democratic rule in this country, in that country. And I think we're going to have to come here in Canada eventually, because we're going to have to supersede a very arrogant and a very high-strung Senate that thinks it can dictate the terms for the whole country. And even though these jokers, and there are some good people there, and Pamela Wallin being one of the best, but most of these people are jokers, clowns who got appointed, and they think they have the right to say no to your elected representative who's voting in a certain way. So we're looking for a crisis eventually. But I hope the people and democratic rule comes out ahead of that. That's all I'm going to mention today. I'm going to be back tomorrow to talk about national defense. And did you know General Andrew Leslie, who I actually met during my time at National Defense Headquarters, he was a bit of a legend because he's the grandson of Andrew McNaughton, who was not only a general in the Canadian Army and a hero of the First World War in the artillery, he was a defense minister during the Second World War under Mackenzie King. So Andrew Leslie comes from rather pristine stock, shall we say. He expected to be defense minister when when Justin Trudeau assumed power in 2015. He did not get the job he thought he was born for, and he thought he was destined for. He became the government whip instead, was never happy in this job, was defeated after winning his seat, but now he is coming out swinging against Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, saying this is a government that has sacrificed our national defense on the altar of woke politics. And Canada, as he says, is undefended. He's probably not going to call into question our ridiculous, fatuous support of Ukraine, but at least he's acknowledging that we've given the store away in the process of supporting Ukraine, and we are undefended. And he is now working with Pierre Poilievre's people behind the scenes as a potential defense advisor. I don't know. Do you trust him or not? His liberal links, his liberal lineage is quite strong. People change, and we have to allow for people to change. And I hope he has, because he does have a lot of military expertise to offer any government, especially one that actually wants to do something positive and productive for national defense. Thanks for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow. Keep those numbers moving up. Please, thank you for watching this show today. Recommend it to your friends and family. Let's not only beat Trudeau's censorship, but the suppression of social media.